Hello, everyone. It's Kendra and Jenny here from Take Your Health Back Now. So we are up to season 2, episode 5 today.
Yes.
This is going to be a fairly short one because we don't have a ton of time, but we are kind of fired up today. You know, usually Jenny and I are both kind of laid back, happy people, and no matter what's going on. But really, this past couple of weeks, what has been going on is just got us. I mean, it's crazy, and everybody knows what's going on, but we just wanted to kind of address it and also address what you can do about it, because we do. Again, we keep talking about this. It all comes down to choice and free will, right? And that's the one thing nobody can take away from you. You still have it. And you just have to make sure that you have all the information and then make your choice no matter what the situation. So we just want to kind of touch on what's been going on and move on from there.
I feel like as humans, maybe that's one of the hardest things, to be impartial, to really legitimately in a given situation, take away your personal bias, your, what's coming in at you, and actually look at data and facts and, extrapolate from that what the outcome might be.
Right.
And then make an informed decision based on that, rather than societal pressure or past, personal bias, even if it's kind of not conscious, to stop and think. That's why it's hard to get really good judges, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Or like a jury,
Right.
Why a jury on a big case is sequestered, because they're not allowed to see everyone else's opinion, because it might impact their being impartial, their bias. So
Right.
I feel like in this situation, this time, there are a lot of big decisions and a lot of judgments that you personally have to make for yourself and your family. And you really need to take the time to sit and be kind of impartial.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That is a huge piece of this. And we've been saying this from the beginning, and not just us. I mean, everyone, if you're listening to us, you're probably listening to other people that are talking about similar things. And everybody's been saying that you have to make your own choices. But it's hard because there's so many opinions and everything. The divide is getting bigger and bigger. And you've got this half of your family saying one thing and this half of your family saying the other. And I mean, even this week, like Jenny had an issue where her family, who's kind of on the other side of things, went their own way, and Jenny wasn't welcomed into what was going on. And I know this is, anyone that says they're not stressed right now, it's a lie. I'm sorry.
It is very stressful,
because in one way or another.
And it's for me personally, I actually have more respect for someone who has a strong opinion that's backed by information than someone who is just listening to what's coming at them and then kind of tiptoeing around it, or telling you one thing and then doing another. That's the part that really irritated me.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's kind of a humanistic quality too. I know in the past I was always that way, where you don't like confrontation. You like to do the right thing and go along with the flow and make everybody happy and that type of thing. But this is not the time to do that.
No,
for sure.
Too many big, important life impacting decisions being made to really go with the flow, I think, on this one.
Yeah. And one of the things, and this is how we change. This is another thing we keep talking about. Everybody's talking about how what has been going on for so long that we've kind of gone along with and ignored has been bad. I mean, there's been so much, people have been getting sicker and sicker. It's like 50% of animals are going extinct. Our microbiome, I was just reading a really good book about our microbiome and the biology of life from Dr. Lipton, who's awesome, last night. And, he was talking about the average person, even if you're not symptomatic, you have lost 15 to 40% of your microbiome. So all life is going extinct. And the fact that we think we're not is, I don't know what you're thinking.
And guess what? Your microbiome has a huge impact on how well you can fight disease, bacteria, virus, those types of things are dependent on your microbiome. So, by staying away from each other and taking crazy new experimental medications, or even just non-experimental, just medicating in general, it's not going to make this process stop. These things that are big and affecting everyone and spread quickly are going to get worse and worse and worse if we don't address the root causes.
Right. And that's why I started to say, and I got off track because I'm so today. But the point is that we have to make this new reality. You know, we're working toward that. I'm sure we've talked about that before too.
Yes.
But the choices you make now are working toward making this new world that we're going to be building. But you know, some of the things that have been happening this week, the children, I'm sure most everyone knows probably. So we've been watching this, you know, they made the shot available for 12 to 18-year-olds, right? And then now, just last night, they made the CDC director approved for 5 to 12-year-olds now. But, you know, it's awful that they're pushing this through. Everything about it is awful. It's true. It comes down to choice. Like, you know, with adults, and I know I've said this before too, sometimes I feel like a broken record, but, you know, with adults have free will and choice. And they have, like what Jenny was talking about, they have the ability, if they're paying attention, to go out and get the information themselves and then sit with it and make the choice that feels right for them. But for these kids, there is no choice. They don't know. And, you know, the choice is being made for them. So that's what really gets me. It's the voiceless, but it comes down to now it's the parent's choice. So again, if you feel like you don't have a choice, you do. You know, if you have kids, you make that choice. If you have to pull your kids out of school, you make that choice. That's hard.
Right. But, and I think a lot of people mix up having a choice with having an easy choice.
Right. Yes, that's a big one.
Having a choice doesn't mean that what you choose to do is going to be simple or easy. It may be very hard, but that doesn't make it not an option.
Right.
You know,
almost all choice, any change is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, it always is. There's no change without
discomfort.
You know, that it's super easy. We're going to completely change our life and it's just going to be easy breezy all the way across.
Everyone would be perfectly healthy. There would be no pollution. There would be no violence. It would be great.
Right. And maybe that's hopefully the world we're working towards, but you have to make those hard choices in the meantime to get to that point. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But that was really kind of heartbreaking that went through last night. But it comes down to parents now have to make the choice to not, you know, follow through with that.
Right. And this is something that even if you are a proponent of the conventional medical system, you are, you know, all about that side, and that's the process you want to move forward with, even in that arena, this is not usually how things are done. We very rarely protect the old people while taking the biggest risk on the young people. Our medical thinking has always been to protect the young and the pregnant at the risk expense of the older population. And I mean, it sounds terrible when you say it, but that's, you know, it's a whole psychological experiment. That's really what you should do. And we are right now, they're pushing this by saying it protects the older people at the risk of the younger people, because younger people have very, very, very low risk from the disease in the first place.
Right.
So by giving them something that causes reactivity, that causes other health issues in them, and doesn't necessarily, it's not that efficient, we are doing the opposite of what we normally do, even if you are all for, you know, conventional wisdom on that side of things. So it really doesn't make sense. You have to look into it. You have to understand why it's being pushed out or what the risks are before you just go in. And they're talking about it like, have you heard? They're like, the kid-sized dose, like it's some fun like kids meal that you go.
I saw some really creepy video. I was going to send it to you. I forgot that, I think yesterday, and it was a video put out by Pfizer Hopefully I can say that word without being tagged. But it was all kids, and it was interviewing kids, and they're like, what is a superhero to you? And the whole video was on, thank you, kids that went through the clinical trial, because you're a superhero for
Oh yeah,
all of
even
us.
on the radio, they were talking to one of the county health directors, and she was saying, I mean, and this was already last night, so they're already interviewing people about how to get kids more okay with, kids don't like shots, so
Right.
that's a barrier.
Right.
And she said the same thing. She's like, I understand, I don't like shots, I didn't want to get it, but I did. And you can distract them with a song or a story. She's like, or you can talk to them about how they're like a hero, and that what they're doing is amazing. And
Right.
yeah, it's seems a little brainwashy to me.
Yeah, a lot. And then the other thing was there are all kinds of kids, and again, all over the world, right? This is all over the world. More and more reports coming out with, we're focusing on kids right now, people of all ages, but especially young adults, and then now between the 12 and 18-year-old range, where they're getting that myocarditis,
Yeah.
which is a heart
Swelling,
injury.
yeah.
And what that means is you will go down that track where you have to get a heart transplant. I mean, can you imagine a heart transplant? That is very rare. And
Right.
I
And
mean, I just can't even.
It may not be like acute, like they get it and then 10 days later they're waiting for that transplant. It may not happen like that.
No, they say within 5 years.
The bigger issue with our food and drug processing as a whole is those long-term side effects, those things that is very hard to, when you're 35, come back and say, oh, these increasingly bad chronic health concerns that I'm having stem from all of these XYZ things I had in childhood. Like you can't.
Right.
And even if there was a clear path tying it back to it, at least with these types of things, inoculations, the companies have no liability. So it doesn't really matter to them if down the road there are impacting, crazy, awful side effects. It won't impact their bottom line at all.
Right. Because they have complete immunity.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to people have to just stand up and make a choice.
Right. It's the preventative principle that we've always said. If it's not proven to be safe, then you shouldn't be putting it in or on your body. That goes for this situation.
Right. And remember, this is still an emergency use authorization. So that is still a clinical trial. So when it all came out, it was a clinical trial due to go through 2023. And then they approved the Pfizer shot. But it was one that the way they worded it could be exchanged with the one that they were using, which is just under the emergency use authorization. So again, that's now what they're going to roll out to kids too. It's still not even approved, but because they have that wording, they can do it that way.
And even if it is approved, things that are approved in that, I don't know what you want to call it, that column of pharmaceuticals as a whole, there is no liability. So it really doesn't matter if they're approved or not approved. There's very little concern at the top level with actual health and safety. Most of it is brand. What they look like in the short term does concern them, so they don't want really a lot of acute symptoms,
right?
And then financial gain. So those are really what's pushing it. And there's places like, if you look outside of the US, even things like things that should be working the way inoculation does. So you get a live version of something at a low dose that actually makes your system react in the way nature intended. Those make more sense to me. Even those kind of things, like with varicella or chickenpox, most countries do not require that for children because it actually causes more community spread because they're contagious. So then older people that didn't have it get very sick and die. the risk of children getting sick from chickenpox, the major long-term bad side effects are so low that they don't want the kids getting it because they're spreading it to people in the community.
Right.
But in the US, not only is it approved, it is required. So we're, look at things like that.
Right.
Outside of just the situation to kind of understand the system.
And so then talking about required, so the two other big things that have been rolling out this last couple of weeks is the job mandates. So now it is down to, it's federal, right? It's down to anyone with 100 employees or over, they can mandate, right? Is that
Well,
correct?
it's not a mandate. So it's an OSHA regulation. So at a federal level, we have an OSHA regulation that is kind of, it's like out there, but I don't know if it's being enforced yet, but it doesn't matter. It's written. So most big employers are getting it put into place for when it officially goes in. It doesn't
Right.
matter if it's now or in a couple months, they're going to get started. So what that says is for them as a large company, they have to create a healthy, safe environment for their employees. That sounds good, right? They
Right.
don't want to fall off a ladder or get poisoned at work. But they're using that organization to enforce vaccination requirements. So the federal government is saying that in order to create a healthy workplace, everyone has to be vaccinated.
You're
And
using that word.
well, because I think it's okay because we're talking about what they're doing.
Well, that's true. You never know.
I don't think
right
we'll
now.
get blocked because I'm not saying it's not right.
Right.
This is what they're doing. So as an employer, to make it safe, you have to require that so that if you as an employee don't want to do that, then they are on the end of it where they get fined. So they have to enforce it. If they don't, as an employer, they get fined. So where are they going to, they're not going to stand up for their employees' rights because then they get fined. And
And it's a huge fine. It's like $14,000
like one of the biggest
per
OSHA
person.
fines. Yeah. There's so
And
many
then
terrible working environments that no one does anything about, but this.
Right.
Yeah.
So that should be a red flag. I mean, again, it comes down to common sense.
Yeah.
Common sense. Use your common sense. My sister lives in Seattle, well, outside of Seattle, but in King County, and her husband has his own business, and they have a law. It's King County law in place that you have to have, the only people you can hire have the shot.
Yeah.
So they're like really down the road. And then Australia, it's crazy. So also be looking around the world, because this is a worldwide issue that's going on, worldwide plan. If you guys watched us 2 years ago when this whole started, and the whole thing started, and we did the first What's Going On video podcast, that plan is still rolling out. I definitely think, I keep saying this across the board, this will come to an end. There's no way this is sustainable, but we don't know how long this will be. And like I said, watch around the world, because some places, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, it's much worse even than it is here, or Israel.
I feel terrible I feel like our state is one of the worst in the country for these kind of rules and regulations going in. But people in those countries that you just mentioned, I think about that like every couple of days, how awful it would be for them, because they're so much stricter, and it's at a country federal level for them, and they're basically being used as experiments. There is some really good data coming out of those places on the side we lean towards, which I'm thankful for, but I feel really bad for the people who are living through that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people standing up all over the world too, which is a good thing. But we don't see that. It's hard to find that that's happening, but it is. Thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are standing up for their rights. But again, it's choice, and then standing up for yourself.
Yeah.
But I got a little off. But the other thing I was going to mention is what went through in Illinois this past week. So probably you can explain it better than me.
So there were a couple of things. We do have some mandates. The governor has really used his executive order powers a lot in the last, over the last couple of years. So the newest mandate was for childcare workers. So as of right now in our state, at least we're mandate or test. So you don't even have to get like an exemption form. If you just say you don't want to, you can test, but they're making the testing so incredibly cumbersome and expensive that it's like pushing you to almost just get so fed up with it that you go get it. I feel like that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
But that's their little loophole, so we can't complain too much because it's or test. So everyone that is right now childcare, so infant through higher education, public higher education is now mandated that they have to either have the shot or they have to test at least once a week. So that's a lot. That's a lot of people in the state. And then they signed an actual piece of legislation that was pushed by the governor too, but it did go through the legislative process, even though it was last minute, where all employers have to, it's harder to explain than a mandate. So basically they can put whatever rules they want in place. So they don't have to have a rule, but the rules that they do have, they now have the authority to fire people for whatever, if they don't follow any and all of their COVID protocols. So they can, it doesn't talk about a shot. It doesn't talk about testing. It really doesn't talk about anything. It just says that you cannot have an objection, religious, conscientious, medical, to anything that your employer or public school provider wants to put in place. Most people are assuming that that will just be basically a vaccine mandate, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It's very vague. It's very broad reaching. So it's an amendment to our state constitution, to the Right of Conscience Act, that says anything to do with this, the employer has the authority to just fire people or kick them out of school.
Right. And there are a lot of people right now that we know, well, people are talking about, they want to use medical exemption, but that's almost impossible. And then now with this new amendment to the bill, they can't even use religious exemption, and religious exemption should be This is why this is important to me, whatever the reason is. But now you can't use that. So again, it comes down to choice. So if you're, and this doesn't go through until June.
Right. So our legislative session just ended. So generally the last week of session, all kinds of things get pushed through last minute. Like they were in session till like 12:30 at night with all of these things. So those things get voted on, but then they do have to go through a regular process. So yes, that will not actually come into play until June, but I'm sure big companies, especially that are leaning that way, are going to just get everything ready right now.
Right. And we've had people contact us and say, that their company has already put this in place. And I've had a lot of people come and send me the letters that they're getting from their company that make it almost impossible. I mean, like really, and again, choice. If you have to walk away, you've got to do it, because that is the only way we're going to make this new world, whatever it is, because so many of these companies are bad for us, bad for the environment, bad, whatever. So many, if you really step back and look, and it's scary to do that. It's scary to walk away from the consistency of a paycheck or your insurance, or there are these kids that have just gone through school. I know a couple of nurses that have just gone through nursing school and they're ready to graduate and they're so excited to start their job. And now this is happening, especially with healthcare workers. And they have to make the choice whether to continue on this path they wanted to pursue for the last 4 years. They have all this debt with, school loans and whatever. But you have to make the choice that's right for you, and building that new. So what are you good at? What is your passion? What is your job now? You're a nurse. Okay. Can you start something new that is building on healthcare in a better way? Like what we do. We don't want to be selling you on our programs, but we have great. but it is. And, we have our preventive health practitioner program. So, if
Yes.
people started now, by the time June came, they could be on their own, starting their own business.
Right.
Or if you can think of something else that you love to do, whatever it is, but
Yeah.
now's the time to get creative and start putting it into place and
Right.
starting something. And if you think about, it could be helping somebody else. There are other countries where people are going in for like a transplant, and because they don't have the shot, they can't get in to get the transplant, or
Yeah.
they can't get medical care because they don't have their vaccine passport or whatever.
Right.
So thinking out. So if this doesn't go through till June, think out into the future and start now working towards that, if that's if that resonates with you.
Yeah, you have to. It's another human nature thing. People tend to put off things that are not fun
Right.
to the very
Or
last
scary.
minute.
I mean, it's
Or
scary to
scary.
start something new.
Right.
It's scary to be an entrepreneur for a lot of people.
And I feel like we really are at the last minute right now. Even if you are not in this state, if you are not in this country, that I don't think we have any international viewers, but welcome. We can look back over the last 2 years and kind of see the progression of this, and we can see that it's going to keep ramping up. I mean, it will have a tipping point where enough people stand up and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And then we will come back down to where we should be. But until then, it's going to keep ramping up. So you really do need to have a plan in place. You need to sit and think and make that decision. Don't let other people make the decision for you.
Right. That's a big one right now, because everyone will be telling you what's the right thing to do. And you don't want to leave your job, whatever. Right. But you have to, it comes down to you and listening to your own innate intelligence. We say this all the time, but it's true. I mean, and then just making the choice that's right for you. I mean, really just block everything out and think about it.
Take the information and the data and really look at it for yourself, and then make that decision based on your situation. What is the best outcome? Not what is the easiest, not what is the most comfortable, but what is the best choice.
Right. And we're kind of running out of time. Imagine that. But, there's more things coming down the line too, with people are talking about supply chain issues, things like that. So maybe we'll do another podcast on that in the next one. And what you can do. So you're preparing sustainably for this. And again, even doing that, that's preparing for this new world. And one more thing I just want to say is, if you go back and listen to our first podcast, I don't remember what it was called, about what was going on, current events or something. And if there's so many other people talking about this right now, but this is a global world takeover plan, but it's been in the works for decades. And so as it's going and as people are standing up, imagine these people that have been planning this. I mean, literally, it's been going on for more than decades, at least a century with the conventional medicine. But these people, this plan is amazing. If you really sit back and look at it, the details, it's fascinating. I mean, it really is. And these people
in power and have a ton of money want to always make sure that they are growing that.
Right.
And they are great business people.
They are. I mean, it really is. If you look at it from a non-judgmental, you just sit back and look at their plan, it really is very fascinating. But how deep it goes and how intricate and well thought out, thinking out generations ahead. I may be dead by the time we get there, but my next generation, I mean, it's pretty amazing. But what I was going to say is, as people are standing up, and there are more and more people standing up to this, they will start getting desperate and trying to roll this out as fast as they can. And we're already seeing this. So you just have to be prepared. And again, we don't know how long this is going to take before it crashes and burns. Like Jenny said, the tipping point going down the other way, but you can't just sit and wait and not take any proactive approach, because it could be a couple of years, who knows?
But and by doing that, you are making the choice to fit into that cycle. You are putting yourself into the system that keeps moving in the same direction it's been moving now, because that's the system you've been in, and you're making a choice not to get out of it. So that in itself is a choice, and it is contributing to that system.
Right. So remember, you can't have change without changing.
Right. Yes.
I just wanted, we can close on this book. If anybody ever follows us and anything we do, I talk about this book all the time because it was really life-changing for me. But if you're thinking about switching careers, coming up with your own career, what would you want to do, your life purpose, that kind of thing. If you don't want to do PHP, which is awesome, we've already done it for you and you just have to learn how to do it and go out. But this book, the Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, as you can see, I've read it so many times, the dog has even chewed on it. But it's really great book. A lot of the people that he interviews in here were people that were through the Depression. That's when they started their great idea, their business, and became millionaires, was actually in the Depression when, people, everyone knows about the Depression, but as long as there's always a need for so many different things, if you can add value to somebody's life in some way, and fill that, that's when you can really come up with something great that will help you prosper and help other people. And that's what we want moving forward anyway. So I highly recommend this book.
Yeah, it's a good place to get some inspiration from. And humans have the potential to do great positive things and come up with amazing inventions, but really we're humans, so we have that human nature where change is in our brain unsafe, and not your thinking brain, more like your monkey mind, that instinctually if you are safe and okay right now, your brain wants you to stay there because otherwise might not be safe and okay.
Right. Your conscious mind or your ego, because that's what it's there for, to keep you safe. And so it's constantly, that's how it protects you. That's what Jenny was saying.
So you have to kind of be aware of that. But necessity is the mother of invention. So in times like this, we do often get big change and big positive, occurrences and great new inventions. And that's why. So just remember that you are in the middle of that right now, and that could be a great way to spark that for you.
Right. And think about it. This is an opportunity. I know I've said this a lot, quite a while ago, who knows when, a year ago or something. We're halfway through this, but it really is. It's an opportunity on so many different levels. And it takes something like this to get you out of your comfort zone and move forward. So think of it in that mindset, that this is an opportunity and what can you do to move forward. And also remember, and that's a lot of what this book is, that everything that has ever been that God or source did not create was created in the human mind with just an idea. I mean, that's what it is. Everything, like everything in this room, this table,
I was just thinking that. I was like, my sweater and this microphone.
I mean, everything. These weren't just here. Somebody from their creative source, their inner subconscious knowing, came up with these amazing things. I mean, everything you look around, if it's not nature, somebody came up with it. So you can come up with anything right now.
Right.
So just keep that mindset. You are abundant.
Yes.
And creator. So just keep that in mind and think of this as an opportunity instead of getting caught in that flywheel. I know I've said this too, so think of it, this is like a hurricane going on around you, right? But stay in that eye of the storm that's where you have control. So that's where you can come up with your great idea or join PHP.
Yes.
Okay, so we have to go on to our next appointment, but hopefully this helped. And sorry if we were ranting, but we've just been fired up this week because this is so crazy. But stand up for yourself, stand up for your kids, especially. And
make good choices.
Make good choices. make the right choice for you.
I always tell my kids that when they be safe and make good choices.
Right, exactly. So we'll leave you with hopefully this helped.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.